So, yesterday we made a video about FM26 saying why we might need to be worried about the game in response to a bunch of different media publications who had played the alpha version of FM26 saying that the game was brilliant but buggy, and we were a bit worried by the number of bugs. Now, if you watch the whole video, we said many a time that this was just the alpha version and we are sure they will get a lot of it fixed before the beta, but we were a little bit worried about what we might see. Though yesterday, almost as a follow-up to that video, obviously not really, but they brought it out only a few hours later, Sports Interactive released a 90-minute playthrough of FM26 by Spencer Owen. He had Jared Bowen, the West Ham captain, come on, and Miles Jacobson, the head of Sports Interactive, showing the game from the UI to the match engine, even to the manager creation. And I'm genuinely delighted to say this because as a fan of the game, it's exactly what I want, but I think they have shut us right up because, to me, the game looks brilliant. I'm going to break down why I think it looks so good, what I'm excited for, the couple of drawbacks I still have about the game, and why we might need to be a little bit patient when playing FM26. But if you do go on to enjoy the video, smash the like button and let me know in the comments your thoughts. Have you watched the gameplay? What did you think? But I think they've absolutely smashed it, and today we're going to be talking over this video. Now, it's a very long one. I'm not going to play it all, obviously. Don't worry, I'm going to make sure the sound's off there. But we're going to jump through a few of the different things that I noticed, the things that I really like, the things I think they can work on. We're going to cover it all. But one other thing to mention before we start is at the same time of that coming out, there was also a few different interviews that came out with Work the Space and Miles Jacobson, and there was also an FM podcast with Miles Jacobson as well. And one of the things he mentioned in those videos is some of the fixes they've made on the game, some of the bugs they've fixed, which were a lot of the bugs which were reported in the alpha testing, which is obviously what we wanted to see. And we did say we expected most of those bugs from alpha to be fixed by the beta. We were just hoping there wasn't loads by the beta period, as much as we still expect it. And of course, the beta is there for us to find the bugs. We were hoping it wouldn't be a game that crashes and a buggy mess, but it sounds like he mentioned in the interview with Work the Space that the crashes, they've been fixing them as much as they can, and a lot of that's been sorted, and they've even introduced a back button and whatnot, which a lot of people had an issue with in the UI. But speaking of the user interface, I suppose we'll start there with the new menu, which has been made a lot more sleek, a lot more streamlined in my opinion. I think it looks cool. It's only the menu, no one's really getting that excited about it, but the general game setup I really like the look of. Now, it used to be just a list of things on the right hand side here. We can see it looks different. Online is still available for those of you that like doing your online saves. You still get your preferences and whatnot. I just think it looks more gamified here, which I don't think is a bad thing at all. And that continues on to the next screen, where again this looks a lot clearer, a lot more streamlined than the old FM used to look. You've still got Create Your Manager here, which will then add him onto the homepage that we just saw in the menu, and you can then use that manager for a quick start create or an advanced setup, the same way as before, where you can choose which countries and leagues are active. And that's the next part they show. Obviously, none of this is something that would sell the game to you, but it is nice that they've made it look a little bit better. The unemployed button is a lot more visible. You've got the league's reputation shown up here, the media predictions of all the clubs. You can choose the teams that you're going to manage. This is in the quick start mode. Obviously, in the advanced mode, I imagine it looks a bit different, and you can choose your leagues and whatnot that you're going to load in. And then we got into the manager creator, which this is the only part of the video where I was a little bit not fully on board with. I will say everything else I really enjoy. The UI that I thought I might struggle with and might struggle getting used to, I actually think it looks really good, and as long as it works in the right way, I think it's an improvement. But the thing that I wasn't so sure about is the manager creator, where they did say, and they were 100% correct in saying, that the customization has been sent through the roof of the Unity engine. There's a lot more you can do, from sculpting a jaw of your manager to all the different clothes and wearing a watch and makeup, man, woman, whatever you want to do. You can really play around with the manager to have it look how you want. The only thing you won't be able to make it look, and this was my only problem, is realistic. As much as it's cool, the customization, and it looks like what you're used to seeing in Football Manager, I personally still don't think the faces that they use for the new gens and the managers and whatnot look that great. And this technology is also what's used in the new gen players, I'm led to believe. So when you have a wonder kid come through your academy that isn't a real player, they will have a face that obviously won't look exactly like this guy with a mustache, but it's going to be used in that same engine and will have the same almost cartoonish feel. Now, I feel like that's something they could improve, especially as the game goes forward, because Miles does say that FM26 is almost the start of a new generation of the next 10 or 20 years using this new engine and this new format of the game. It's not going to change drastically year on year the way it has this year. But if there was another FM26 update or FM27, there's one thing that I could ask them to change, it really would be the new gen faces. I just think when you've got Premier League licenses and World Cup licenses, it makes the game feel so much more realistic, and then sometimes you're taken out of it by images that look like this. this. I mean, to be honest, it looks like something from The Sims from like 10, 20 years ago, but I'm not going to get into too much negativity here because the customization is there, and the customization at least is an improvement from where we were previously. In the end, he makes his manager look pretty cool by the end of it, but again, it is still that cartoonish new gen face that I would hope that they would move away from at some point in the next few years. But let's move on from the manager creation to the next steps, which is setting your credentials and your reputation. And it's less about allocating your attribute points into certain areas of the game. It used to be you'd put 20 into working with youngsters, 1 into motivation, however you wanted to do it. Now you get to choose your football career, so whether you didn't even play at amateur level, whether you were a generational superstar, you can make it up, and this will kind of tell the story of your manager. And there's a lot of tutorials and stuff to help you along the way, which is exactly what you want to see. You then talk through your coaching experience and whatnot, and by the end of clicking through all of these things and saying what kind of manager you are, you'll end up with your manager profile looking something like this by the end of it, with different stats for attacking, defending, goalkeeping, whether it's average, reasonable, competent, however you play it. Obviously Spencer here, Spencer Owen, who did a great job in the video, I thought. He's almost gone for the journeyman style manager that doesn't really have that many strengths and is going to have to learn them over time. And then we get into our first look of the game, its UI and the gameplay. And I must hold my hands up and say this is exactly what I wanted to see. Sports Interactive have released videos about different sections of the game, but there's always been murmurings underneath that the game wasn't really working the right way. So what I was waiting for personally was being able to see the game played fully, instead of it being these cut up clips of the match engine that they've chosen for the trailers, which is of course what they're going to do, but I personally wanted to see something like this, and to see it 90 minutes unfiltered near enough, and with Miles Jacobson there as well for quite a lot of it, explaining the game, some of the decisions made. It's exactly what we want. Good communication, seeing the game, seeing what we're going to pay our money for, because we all love Football Manager, we all put our hours into it, but for those of you that have put a lot of hours in, you might struggle a little bit with what you're about to see. It's the new user interface, which we might have to do a tutorial on when the game comes out for you guys, but don't worry, because Football Manager has its own tutorials in the game with the FMpedia and whatnot, but it does look very, very different. Now, I will say, I think it looks great. I've said that for a long while too. I think the new user interface looks better, particularly compared to the standard FM skin that you would get previously. My only issue would have been how it functioned and whether there was issues with it, which we know from a lot of the alpha reports, there was some issues with the user interface in terms of back buttons and not being able to get into certain areas. But as they go and show it off in this video, I think it looks exactly how you'd want it to look. It looks more modern, more gamified, and looks better than what was basically a spreadsheet game that we played previously. Though Miles has said in many an interview, and they have made this clear, and we want to make it clear to you guys as well, if you're a lover of FM, which many of you watching this video will be, if you're an experienced player with a ton of hours, you are going to struggle with this, not because it's bad or not because it's good, just because it's new. And they've said that in their testing, actually new players have found this easier to use than players that have got 10,000 hours into FM already, because you're unlearning everything that you know, or your muscle memory about where to click for what thing. It's changed, and we're going to have to give it time, and they make that clear. When I was talking to Stam, the guy that runs FMSCOUT, he used the analogy of it's like being in a supermarket, but they've moved where all your favourite things are. Obviously, that doesn't mean the quality of the food or the things you're buying are any worse. In fact, in this case, they might be better, but they're spread about, and it's going to take a while to get used to where to look. But I personally think once we get the hang of this, we are going to love it, because it looks much better. They showcase the bookmarks as well, where you can put whatever screens that you like to use the most often up here as bookmarks. 6 for low resolution screens, 9 for medium resolutions, and screens with lots of resolution, I don't know the exact numbers, you can have 12 bookmarks up there, whether that be training, whether it be your schedule, whether it be your under 21s team, without having to navigate through, you can have them up here. Now, I'm not going to go through every screen that they showed, but to sum it up, it looks better to me. And there wasn't really any bugs either. There was a few times I mentioned in the video, and it's not necessarily a bug, but Spencer a few times, he was clicking on certain things and it didn't do what it wanted him to do, but that's just because, like us, he's used to the game previously, and I think there was an element of that where he's also learning the game. And whilst when we play it, we won't have the creator of Football Manager sitting next to us guiding us through it, I think we'll get used to this, and I think we'll enjoy it. I think they've smashed it out the park. That also continued into tactics, which again, we'll do a tutorial on once we've got our heads around it here on the channel. I have not had alpha access, I've not played it myself, but it looks like the tactics that we know, just made to look a little bit different. Personally, am I a huge fan of the way they've done this? Do I think it looks a bit more convoluted than the old tactical system they had? Maybe, but you know, with the fact that we've now got out of possession tactics, I think it's a step up overall for tactics. It certainly is. I'd love if we had in possession tactics, out of possession tactics, and the old view, but maybe that's just me as an experienced FM player. I just think, personally, looking at all these options, it can get a bit confusing. If you want to play a high line, where do you look straight away? It was a bit more obvious in the previous FM, I thought, but we'll get used to it, I'm sure, over time. But the in possession and out of possession stuff, I'm very happy with. I think it looks great, and we'll break down the tactics in more detail. One thing to notice is when you're looking at combined, you get a star rating for your player's ability to play both their in and out of possession roles. In possession, Jared Bowen might be a 5-star inverted winger, but he might only be a 3-star WMF, whatever that means. I don't necessarily know at this point, but when it's combined, he's 4 stars. So when you are scouting, you're going to be looking for players that can do both. And speaking of scouting, they don't show it too much in this video, but they do say the transfer room is going to be a big part of your recruitment. And Miles has mentioned there will be some short tutorial videos coming out soon from Football Manager themselves, and I hope the transfer room is one of those, because it's basically going to allow you to see players that other teams might want. So Liverpool might be after a right winger, and you might go, you know what, we've got a right winger we could offer to them. And in the same way, if you want a right winger, you can put it out there, other teams can see it, and offer you the players that might suit, which apparently that's a big way that the real life transfer market works. I personally don't know, as someone that isn't an actual football manager and only watches the game, but that leads us on nicely to watching the game itself, where Jared Bowen then joined Spencer for, I think, 3 matches. I think Bowen's there for 2 matches, and then Spencer plays another one on his own. Again, we're not going to go through the full 60 minutes here, but I am sold. I am sold massively on the gameplay. I think it looks so much better. Some people say it looks the same, but it's just the way the players move, the graphics, the lighting, the pre-match ambience as well when you have the players walking out, all the graphics as well, with it being the Premier League and the licensing, makes it look way better. But the thing I'm maybe the biggest fan of all is when you go in between highlights, which will happen here, you get this little pitch set up, and it basically plays through the game between highlights and shows you how your team is shaping up and what's going on. Now, personally, this is brilliant because you can really get an idea of how your tactic is playing, where your players are positioned, where there might be space to attack, which is a lot easier to visualize, and that will hopefully make the managing a lot better. Again, I could go through all of this, but I'm not going to waste your time in the video. If you want to go watch it, go ahead, but the gameplay looks great, and what I love is it was unfiltered gameplay. Some stuff happened that they might not have wanted to. They struggled a lot. They had a penalty, I think, early on in this game that Jared Bowen gives away against Brentford. It gets saved. Bowen then goes on to score. They mess around with their tactics a few times. They see the effects on the pitch. There's some cool goals scored as well. The animations look better in that sense. And just generally, the fact that they just showed us someone playing the game has sold me way more than anything else. I can appreciate a trailer can be made to make things look way better, but the fact that we saw it in movement here with very minimal bugs is exactly what I wanted to see. So hands up, credit to Sports Interactive. They smashed it out the park. I'm buzzing to get our hands on this game now, which has officially been announced as the beta coming out on Thursday. It usually comes out sometime around 5-6 p.m. That's when I'll be hoping to see it. We'll be making a video on that day about the best Wonder Kids. As soon as we can get our hands on it, record it, edit it, get it out there. So don't worry, we'll have your back with the Wonder Kid lists. But yeah, Football Manager, Sports Interactive, it looks like they've smashed it out of the park. It's been 2 years in the making, but it could just be the best FM game ever if they get it right. There are going to be bugs, but hopefully by the time the beta's released, there won't be as many, and by the time the beta's finished, we'll have ironed out most of them. That's the hope. I'm very much looking forward to it. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.